Little Joe the Wrangler will never wrangle more. His days with the remuda, they are done. 'Twas a year ago last April, he joined the outfit here, a little Texas stray and all alone. 'Twas long late in the evening, he rode up to the herd on a little old brown pony he called Chaw. With his brogan shoes and overalls, a harder looking kid never in your life had seen before. His saddle was a southern cack built many years ago, an OK spur on one foot idly hung, and his hot roll in a cotton sack was loosely tied behind, and a canteen from the saddle horn he'd slung. He said he'd had to leave his home, his daddy'd married twice, and his new ma beat him every day or two. So he saddled up old Chaw one night and lit a shuck this way, thought he'd try and paddle his own canoe. Said he'd try and do the best he could if we'd only give him work, but he didn't know straight up about a cow. So the boss, he cut him out a mount and kindly put him on, for he sorta liked the little stray somehow. Taught him how to herd the horses, learned to know them all, to round 'em up by daylight if he could, to follow the chuck wagon and to always hitch the team, and help the cocinero rustle wood. We'd ridden to Red River and the weather had been fine. We were camped out on the south side in a bend, when a norther commenced a blowin' and it doubled up our guard, for it took all hands to hold the cattle then. Little Joe the Wrangler was called out with the rest, and scarcely had the kid got to the herd, when the cattle they stampeded like a hailstorm long they flew, and all of us were riding for the lead. Between the streaks of lightning you could see a horse ahead, 'twas Little Joe the Wrangler in the lead. He was riding old Blue Rocket with the slicker above his head, trying to catch the leaders in their speed. At last we got them millin' and kinda quieted down, the double guard back to the camp did go. But one of them was missing, and we all knew at a glance 'twas our little Texas stray, poor Wrangler Joe. Next morning just at sunup we found where Rocket fell, out in a washout 20 feet below. Beneath his horse, mashed to a pulp, his horse had rung the knell on our little Texas stray, poor Wrangler Joe. Hi folks, this is Don Flemons, the American Songster, and I'm going to teach you my arrangement of the traditional cowboy song, Little Joe the Wrangler. Now this is one that was written by a fellow named Jack Thorpe, and the main thing about this one, this song is just 3 chords, but the key to it is being able to frame the story so that you can emphasize different parts of the dramatic narrative that it's telling. And so I have the guitar capoed up to the 4th fret, and I'm playing out of the key of C, so it's in the key of E in terms of how it sounds. And I'll show you just a little bit of the picking pattern, a basic finger picking pattern. And the key to this one is I like to let the melody sort of provide a second voice on this one here. So you take your C chord and you add your pinky down on the 3rd fret on the top string. So you have, and so that's taking your pinky on the 3rd fret and then on the 2nd fret. So you have you're going to do the turnaround for the most part with a variation on the G chord, where you're taking your pinky, and instead of playing on the 3rd fret on the 1st string, you're going to use the 2nd string. So you're going to have that sort of suspended type of chord right there. So just with it all in context, this is how the verse pattern goes, as well as the intro. So that's the first part. Now, usually I like to add a couple of variations and embellishments in the course of singing the song. This in some ways is a way to be able to expand upon the dramatic nature of the narrative, and also to be able to give you a little bit of something to do on the guitar that creates its own sense of drama within it. So, for example, what I'll end up doing is sometimes I'll take that top string out and I'll let the chord just ring out. And so one of the variations on the G chord that I'll do is I'll land on a G, and then I'll go to a quick 7th chord. And in many ways, this pattern sort of mimics the sound of what the voice is doing while the whole song is going on. And so that's one section of it. So when you're playing it, the pattern is that it does 2 of those verse sections. And then there's a second section where you have a quick chord change. So how I like to do it as well is that when I get to this chord change, which will just be going straight into the 4 chord or the F chord, is that when I'm picking this C, then I'll go straight into the 7th, and I'll let that 7th note ring out. So it'll go a little something like this. And we'll go one more time into that. And so those are the main parts of the verse. And so just to sort of give you a little bit, I'll sing a little bit just to show you some of the variations. Little Joe the Wrangler will never wrangle more. His days with the remuda, they are done. 'Twas a year ago last April, he joined the outfit here, a little Texas stray and all alone. 'Twas long late in the evening, he rode up to the herd on a little old brown pony he called Chaw. With his brogan shoes and overalls, a harder looking kid you never in your life had seen before. His saddle was a southern cack built many years ago, an OK spur on one foot idly hung. And his hot rolled in a cotton sack was loosely tied behind, and a canteen from the saddle horn he slung. And so that's a little bit of the verse section. And now what you want to do, now that you have this pattern going on with the song, of course you want it to keep moving forward in the rhythm, but you don't want it to feel rushed. So you want it to feel like it's moving at a nice galloping pace, but it never needs to feel rushed in any type of way. The reason you don't want it to be rushed is that as you're singing the song, you want to create dramatic spaces for what you're singing with the lyrics. And so at times I'll find that I'll stretch out some of the chord changes. You know, I could do Little Joe the Wrangler will never wrangle more. His days with the remuda, they are done. 'Twas a year ago last April, he joined the outfit here, a little Texas stray and all alone. And that creates its own type of dramatic recitation of these lyrics. And so sometimes you might be in a situation where you want to play the song a little bit more straightforward and give the lyric its a nice galloping speed. But other times you may want to slow it down and stretch out the phrases so that the emotions of the song can be conveyed. And then, of course, at the end, though, the other variation I put is, of course, at the end of it, you have this very tragic story where they find Little Joe the Wrangler beneath his horse, and he's died in the course of being a hero and stopping the stampede. And so I sort of created a little, a little funeral bell for Little Joe the Wrangler at the end. And so that's just picking at a few of the strings here. So his horse had rung the knell on our little Texas stray, poor Wrangler Joe. And so in that way you can find those clusters here. This is the first, second, and fourth string. And then on the C you have the second, the fourth, and the fifth string. And then here you have the bass, and then you're getting your second string and your third string. And in that way you want it to be sort of a cluster of chords, so that it just sort of creates this space that you can sort of slow down and have a ritardando at the end of the piece, because it is such a tragedy at the end of the ballad. Well, that's it right there. That's all of Little Joe the Wrangler. I hope you all enjoy, gain a chance to play this classic in the cowboy repertoire. And I did my version on black cowboys, and when I think about why I selected that number, it was connected to a beautiful story that Jack Thorpe, the fellow who actually wrote the song, told about how black cowboys, and when he first met a group of black cowboys on the range, that influenced him to decide to start collecting songs on the trail. And in the context of the album, even though there's not a racial designation for Little Joe the Wrangler, to think of Little Joe as being multiple types of people out on the range, that was also a powerful sentiment that I wanted to put out there in the world. So folks, enjoy playing Little Joe the Wrangler. Thanks again. This is Don Flemons, the American Songster, playing for acoustic guitar, signing off.